What is up, guys? Going off 3 hours of sleep, Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today, oh my goodness, there is a lot going on within the Destiny 2 community. This video is going to update you on exactly what is happening and has happened for the brand new secret quest that began yesterday. Things took a turn for the extremely complicated and absolutely massive. This is one of the biggest undertakings of the community and frankly Bungie ever. Stuff is insane, so let's get started. Now, this all started yesterday when a new quest appeared and put us into the corridors of time. We quickly figured out that entering the right code, essentially going through the right doorways 7 times in a row, would take you to this very interesting room. Once you were in this room, which has a tomb in the middle of it, a lot of people are speculating this is our tomb. And just like Saint 14 was buried with the perfect paradox, the shotgun we gave him on this tomb is a sword. Could this be the light at the end of the tunnel? An exotic sword, perhaps, that Saint 14 gave us and is going back in time or helping us manipulate the timeline to save us from our inevitable demise. Very cool stuff, but on to the more practical stuff. So once you're in this tomb room, you can also interact with this set of question marks. It gives you a piece of lore and unveils a puzzle. Now, it turns out there was 19 different pieces of lore and therefore puzzles that formed a sort of map, and it let people achieve a certain area, which is letting them do the current step the community is stuck on. So let's backtrack a bit. How are we knowing which codes to enter? How do you know the 19 codes to get those lore pieces? Well, every hour on the hour after reset, the obelisks would actually change their symbols on them and reveal the code needed to traverse this corridors of time area. Essentially, if you were to look at an obelisk, as you can see here, this is actually for code 1. You would read starting at the 1 o'clock position and then go clockwise until you get to the top, and then the middle is the last one. So this obelisk would read as plus, snake, clover, hex or interlocking hexagons, snake, plus, and lastly diamond. And this was what it showed for the first hour, and the first code is plus, snake, clover, hex, snake, plus, diamond. So those match up. Again, once you have that code, you run through the doorways of the corridors of time in the correct order, and upon going through that last door, you load into that special room. Now, once you're here and you interact with the bottom object, essentially you unlock the lore, you simply run over the tomb, and that is going to teleport you back to the beginning. Then there's an obelisk on your left-hand side that you can interact with to reset the puzzle, essentially, letting you run multiple codes. So, first things first, let's go over all 19 codes if you're interested in collecting all of those different lore tabs. And instead of reading them out, I'm just going to display them on screen in groups of 5, so you can obviously pause the video and then just follow these codes. So this is the first group of 5 codes. Moving on, we have 6 to 10, then we have 11 to 15, and lastly, we have 16 to 19. So, moving on from there, what is the point of these codes? Well, as I've said, you don't just receive lore, but you also unveil a puzzle, a group of symbols at the bottom of this final room. It turns out that all of these symbols can be arranged and interlocked to form a map, because not only is there a big middle symbol, and we're trying to figure out which big middle symbols to input for a final pathway, but there is groups of smaller symbols on the sides. It turns out some of these smaller symbol groups will match together, and it will form a big hexagonal pattern. In fact, this is the final product simplified. And as you can see, it's a big hexagon, but there's an entry point and an exit point. So you can actually follow a certain pathway because if you look at the big symbols, they have lines, solid lines around them, except for they're broken at certain spots. This is essentially the pathway you need to follow. And it turns out that if you arrange all 19, it shows an 11 symbol pathway. This unlocks something very special. So that 11 symbol pathway, the new code to input essentially if you want to move beyond just collecting the 19 lore tabs, is as follows. You start with diamond, and then you're going to go to clover, snake, plus hex, hex, plus hex, diamond, clover, snake. So, once you enter this code, you're going to eventually go to that same final tomb room, but things are going to be a little bit different. If you go to the normal area that has question marks, instead, this time, it's going to say reveal. And once you do reveal it, you get this brand new emblem. But we don't end there. It turns out that when you interact with this and it says reveal, you're going to reveal your puzzle essentially. It might have a symbol in the middle, it might not. And here's the really interesting part. Every single person's puzzle is unique. To a point. There is actually a few people that may match, but you, and if you have 2 fireteam members, you'll likely all 3 have completely different symbols. In fact, if you come back the next hour, you'll have 3 completely different symbols as well. Then an hour after that, you'll go back to your original symbols. So each character, if you switch to your Titan from your Warlock, you'll have different 2 symbols as well. So every single character has 2 symbols unique to them. And it turns out there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these unique symbols. So, things got really, really interesting at that point. Obviously, there was the possibility that we were doing all of this for an emblem, that emblem you got when you reached that 11 code room, but the quest you got is still incomplete. Like, you reach that room, you get the emblem, and the quest is still unchecked that says explore the corridors of time. So there is more to do. And currently, right now, amazing community members like Glad, Dado, Chevy, tons of people are compiling all of this data. I spent several hours collecting screenshots and renaming folders myself because we need to essentially compile all the data we can to create a mega map. We had the in-game map that showed that 11 symbol pathway, but this is going to be goodness knows how long, but essentially we think that is the same thing but for a much larger map, unveiling a brand new community-made pathway because, again, some people's symbols will match. It's very rare, but it's possible. And match as in be completely identical, which means there is a finite number of puzzle pieces essentially. Also, we're starting to combine the actual matching sides, just like how we connected all the hexagons before for that initial map. We're now connecting the community hexagons, and there's being progress made. As you can see, there's a big spreadsheet that people are codifying the different symbols on the edges of these hexagons, and also we're trying to create a visual representation and a visual map of all these matches. And the thing is, if that sounds pretty complicated and like it's gonna take a while, that's because it likely is. In fact, Bungie themselves tweeted out this. Fractured into many pieces, the corridors of time need to be put back together. The solution is a marathon, not a sprint. And then community manager DMG actually said like, hey, your health is important, go to bed. Cause the time I'm making this commentary, Glad is still streaming a day after he started. So yeah, it's pretty insane within the community right now. If you guys do want to participate and help out, I would recommend going over to Twitch. There will be just someone there streaming, working on this puzzle. I know Glad is having people join him and input their codes because when you reveal your code, other people see your code, and he's just like taking screenshot after screenshot and compiling stuff. There's people working on the spreadsheets. So go to Twitch, I would recommend. And you can definitely find someone currently streaming this puzzle, and then you can go into the chat and ask how you can help out. But the fact of the matter is that this quest is insane. It reminds me of the old Outbreak Perfected quest where there was an ARG component. Everyone in the community had to combine all of these different symbols to eventually reach another map. Like, this is very reminiscent of the Outbreak Prime. There's some hints of Niobe Labs going on. And that's not all. With the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition, a bunch of Hive ciphers were given out, and I think over 300 codes had to be combined to reveal, I think, a lore secret. Not only that, with the Warmind DLC, a bunch of codes were also compiled there. That actually led to a real-life Valkyrie that was buried in the Appalachian mountains. I'm not even kidding. So there is precedence for this. It isn't like we're currently guessing and hoping that this unveils something. There has been several Destiny incidents before this that kind of had the same thing, where the community has to come together and combine a bunch of different points of data to unveil something. So this definitely has precedent. And this is one of those things that, although, people are somewhat frustrated, the first step of getting a code every hour took 19 hours. It's very long, but it is super cool. The entire community is involved, and this is something that just differentiates Destiny from all these other games. What other game is doing this? I can't even think of something that even comes close to this. This is so cool, and I really hope there's something sweet at the end of this colossal puzzle. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.